We can.
And I'm sharing my screen. You can see it?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you for introducing me. I am Ugonwogu from Nigeria. I'm based in the Netherlands, as you rightly said. Actually, I want to thank Sister Winifred Ola Gillard for inviting me to talk. And we met for the first time at South-South and Southeast Investment Forum in Amsterdam. I also met Dr. Collins Wenke, a jolly good fellow, and that's my perception of him. Actually, I would like to speak to you on the key drivers and policy constraints for manufacturing. I have made a very detailed executive summary that lists every aspect of the drivers. However, I selected some few to talk because we have limited time to showcase this. Now, I want to talk about innovative leadership. When the leaders of our manufacturing sector are innovative, they are open to new opportunities and that will improve the manufacturing system. And sentiments have no place when they are innovative, and every idea becomes valuable. And these ideas can turn into research projects that may lead into new product introduction, and this can also lead to process improvements. The next point is government effectiveness. This cannot be overemphasized. Good governance by promoting more efficient divisions of labor, more productive investment, and faster implementation of social and economic policies lead to high economic growth. This we know already. And of course, the development banks can only give loans to countries with good governance. This is really typical because nobody would want to invest or put money in a country with bad governance. And institutions and government policies determine the economic environment within which individuals accumulate skills and firms accumulate capital and produce output. So summarily, the government has to create the enabling environment. And this was also mentioned in the first section by Mr. Gilad Ghania. He talked about enabling environment. Actually, this is the time the government has to put in place the right structure for investors to come in, such as providing good road networks, good electricity, or rather constant electricity, because there are some machines that cannot be powered out. They have to run. And of course, everything that involves logistics, the government should have to be able to provide this. That's creating an enabling environment. And the next point is human capital. This cannot be overemphasized. The chart you are seeing here is all the facets of human capital, but I have summarized it into 4 bullet points, and this has to do with education. This cannot be overemphasized. We know the importance of that. I'm not going to discuss that. The training has to do with training the workforce on technical know-how. If they have the knowledge, of course, the manufacturing system is favored. We need to have a good hospital, a standard hospital facility, where in case the workforce needs treatment, they go there and get the right treatment. If this is not in place, something is missing. And of course, talking about welfare, if we are working in a place we are not comfortable with, we need to move. We need to leave that place and get to where we are comfortable. But all this would depend on how you feel wherever you are. The next point is supply networks. Of course, the products that are manufactured, the services that are provided will have to be distributed from point A to point B. This is where supply networks comes in. The supply network is a pattern of temporal and spatial processes carried out at facilities and over distribution links in a country or in countries, which adds value to customers from the manufacturing and delivery of products and services. Of course, when the product manufactured from point A has not moved to point B where it is demanded, it is not complete. It also ensures higher level of interdependence and connectivity between more African countries. Building bulk rail lines, good rail networks for road haulage of goods, relaxation of border policies for crossover without delays will always enhance our manufacturing system. But the relaxation of border policies and crossover without delays, you know our people, it may be abused, but some checks can always be put in place. We also can talk about domestic demand. Africans must depend on their domestically produced goods for African economic growth. If we want that, we need to really consume our own products. And this has got some benefits. Manufacturing companies are sustainable. And of course, if they are sustainable, jobs are protected. Revenues are generated and used internally. Take, for instance, the companies always pay taxes to the state. And these taxes are used, in quote, are used to develop the country or the state internally. We have foreign direct investment. This is a source of capital. It generates employment, facilitates access to foreign markets, and generate both technological and efficiency spillover to local firms. This cannot be overemphasized. With money, excess money, you can do much. That's one of the problems we are facing in Africa. Starting a small business requires capital, but we give our relatives peanuts to start business. They pay the rent of the shop, the rent of the house, they feed from there. That's not enough. If you need to give them huge money in order to get them started. It is expected that by providing access to foreign markets, transferring technology, and generally capacity building in host country firms, foreign development investment inevitably can improve the integration of the host country into global economy and foster growth. This is very important. We need to do this. And summarily, I want to say that for policymakers, those that put our laws into place, when these factors and others that are listed in the executive summary somewhere are worked on successfully, they will attract private investors, accelerate manufacturing and industrial development in Africa, and contribute to economic growth in Africa and poverty alleviation for African populace. This is it from me. And I want to thank you. I hope I worked within the limited 8 minutes. I can take questions as the case may be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Walgo. You have stayed within the time limit. I thank you for that, and thank you for this contribution. We will be taking questions at the end. So I want to welcome my second speaker of this session, which is Ms. Untitled Maureen. Could you please get your camera on, unmute yourself, and okay, so thank you very much. Maureen is CEO and head coach at Infinite Heights Executive Coaching. She's joining us today from the United States. Thank you very much for making the time despite the time difference. Maureen today is going to be talking to us about leveraging the sports industry for building back economic power, leadership, and cultural development on a global level. And she'll be first delving into what the problem is and potentially bringing up some solutions for that. Maureen, you have the floor. I'll ask you to stay within those 8 minutes as agreed.
Thank you, Crystal. Crystal, do me a favor and give me some kind of timestamp.
I will give you a signal at 7 minutes, and then so you know.
Thank you, because my phone is being used to video record and I can't do time. Problem. Okay. All right. So the sports industry is a $388 billion industry. And while there is high representation of Black athletes in the sports field, our bite of that multi-million-dollar pie is relatively non-existent. What would the impact be if Black-owned businesses were able to get a sliver of that pie? What kind of structure, what kind of leadership would we need to develop as a people to participate and have a piece of that pie? My name is Maureen Alcolt, as Crystal has mentioned. I am the CEO of Infinite Heights Leadership Consortium, and I'm also the co-creator of the Global Wings Project, along with a joint venture project that is created with Michael Thomas. He's the CEO of Tfc Global. That is the track and field coalition that has now expanded on a global level, and we want to increase that. We formulated Global Wings to address exactly these issues, and this is the focus of my point today. So I want to lay some groundwork out. First of all, we are using the Conglomerate Model, and I want to put all of us on the same page by understanding what that is. A conglomerate is a company that has a number of diversified businesses across various industries, and it's formed to reduce the risk and increase the profitability and growth of individual companies who may have struggled if they were to continue to do on their own. Our Global Wings model includes an agenda, however, for developing cultural growth, pride, and leadership within the African diaspora. And we ask that our companies take on this common agenda as a criteria for participation in this project. So why should you go with the Global Wings Conglomerate Model? Well, it provides increased growth of Black ownership versus loanership in a multi-billion-dollar industry. It gives Black-owned businesses access to leverage a wider known Black-owned brand, wanting to give Black businesses a gateway to expand their own enterprise in the global market. So TFC Global is actually the third largest and only Black track and field organization in the US and probably the world, with chartered memberships and Black-owned business partnerships. And currently we are in 35 states, including in the US and in Puerto Rico. We're also in Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and we recently just set up a charter in Kenya. So our project can expand economic and cultural growth and leadership within the African diaspora at a much faster rate and lower risk than a company just trying to go solo. It requires huge capital to be able to participate and compete in the global market. And doing it solo would take a very long time for most of us in this endeavor at this current time. We don't have the capital, but collectively, that's a possibility of that happening much faster. This project also allows our people to be exposed to other cultures, but more importantly, it allows the world to be exposed to our culture. We are, as a people, we go way deeper than what we see on BBC and or those perceived stereotypes that are out there about us. It is time for us to define who we are. It is time for us to define the perception of who we are. And we can do this by being active on the global stage, and we feel like this is the gateway, the global project for that to occur. Now, using the Conglomerate Model, TFC Global is a platform to educate our youth through scholarship, leadership, and athletic development. IHLD, my company, is a platform for leadership development for youth, charter team administrators, and core business owners. Because we know that everything begins and ends with the mindset that is unleashed, unapologetic, and unstoppable in pursuing anything in and beyond one's own vision. So TFC has been operating for over 30 years. And I'm giving you that so that you have some sense of credibility of what I'm talking about and how we have already been in this game. Many of their events are held at the Birmingham Crossplex, which is the #1 indoor arena that is designated by the World Athletic Championship, which is the governing body for track and field sports. They are the keeper of world records and standards in that field. We have produced over 99 national championships and events that gross on an average of 30 to 40,000 USD dollars. And all of our partnerships, all of our suppliers, all of our goods and services and workers are Afrocentric based. We believe in supporting and building our own. And we really want that concept. The model works for us, and we feel like it can work on the global stage for all of us to enter and have more competition in these multi-billion-dollar industries that are out there. Through this project, we promote leadership and development that ultimately benefits every aspect of one's life, with the notion that whatever the mind can perceive, it can achieve. Now, though we encourage businesses to experience what we are already doing, we want you to learn to create this model in your own community and country and see how this can be applied to actually any industry. We invite Black-owned businesses and track and field clubs or organizations that are in your communities to join us to have a slice of this $388 billion pie with our Global Wings project. The conglomerate of diverse Black-owned businesses that support the development of athletes for scholarship, college scholarship, national and world and Olympic competitions, because we're ready to go there, while expanding their own marketable growth. And so with that, if you would like more information on how we can get this plan in action, please contact me. My number is, take a pen, okay? Because I don't have the slide. 929-266-0754. And if you look at my name on the screen there, I actually think it'd be better for you to email me. It's Maureen Alcolt, all one word, @gmail.com. You can text me. I suggest you do that because we're across the waters here. Text instead of call because the hours are really crazy. I'm complete.
I think what you can do is write it in the chat so that all the attendees and panelists can have access to it. That would be
absolutely. And so with that, I just want to say it's been an honor and a pleasure to be here today. I really want to thank Winifred for inviting me to come. We had such a delightful conversation. We discovered that the problems that are over across the waters within the African continent, within Europe, are the same issues we are dealing with all over in the US. And so keeping us diverse and separated is not going to work. We have to come together and create enterprises that serve us and our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. And again, I think people would be interested in having your contact, so I recommend you just write it in the chat. Thank you for that. So our next speaker and our final speaker for this session is Ms. Kazumba, Jane Kazumba. Yes. Is she here? Could you put your camera on, perhaps?
Yes.
Welcome, Ms. Kazumba. So Jane Kazumba is a commercial transaction and media lawyer. She is the managing partner at Abbas Advocate and a TV broadcaster and consultant in the area of broadcasting. She's a communications expert with over 12 years of experience in public and broadcast media. She has also served as TV manager at the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, forgive me. And she holds several degrees in political science, law, and several degrees in law. She will be speaking today about Africa, the new world investment frontier. Jane, as for Maureen, you have 8 minutes to have the floor. At 7 minutes, I'll be giving you a signal to let you know that you need to wrap up your comments. And then after this, I'll be taking questions for all speakers. So I recommend that you all make use of the Q&A tool. We have a few questions coming in. Some of them have come in through the staff. We still recommend that you use the Q&A tool because it's easier for us. Jane, you have the floor for 8 minutes. We can't hear you, unfortunately. It seems you're muted. We can hear you now. Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just want to take this opportunity first and foremost to thank Winfred for inviting me. I'd also like to thank the AfCFTA Business Forum for also inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I'll just reiterate a little about what you said so that I can put what I do into context into what I'm going to speak about. My name is Jane Kasumba. I'm a managing partner for a legal firm called Abbas Advocates. I am a commercial transactions and media lawyer. That is what I do. But I have vast knowledge in broadcasting. Like you said, I was leading the national broadcasting. That was the television section in my country. And most importantly, I have been working extensively in media as well. I am the proprietor of Agenda 2063 TV. It is a television station, online television station aimed at promoting the narrative, the African narrative about the continent and driving trade and foreign direct investment to the continent. And I also am part and parcel of a television platform called Access TV that owns 10 television stations, 10 videos on demand, and 10 podcasts. Our job is to make sure that the correct information is accessible on the continent. And that's what I'm going to speak about today. I'm going to speak about Africa, the world's new investment frontier. Many a time, people have thought of Africa as the dark continent. Well, things have certainly changed. The world is changing. Africa is no longer the dark continent, and we're here to prove that. And we're here to ensure that so many more people consider, not just consider Africa home, but consider it a erstwhile investment destination. There's so many reasons why I would invest in Africa, or perhaps if you're watching, I'd encourage you to invest in Africa. First and foremost, I want you to rid your mind of everything that you've seen on the media, everything that you've seen about on CNN, everything that you've seen maybe on international media that sensationalizes Africa as a place never to go to. The beauty about social media, the beauty about online media is the fact that we're able to tell our stories and tell the truth. And today, people are able to see that Africa is an investment destination that is worth its salt. Well, first and foremost, why would a business person consider investing in Africa? The number one point is we have the market. Can you imagine our continent boasts of a trading bloc of around about 1 billion people? On the 1st of January, 2021, the African Union created what they call the African Continental Free Trade Area. This has created the biggest trading bloc in the world since the creation of the WTO, which is the World Trading Organization. And it brings together a young and boisterous population, vast raw materials, and abundance of mineral wealth. So the first and most important thing is, number one, the best way to invest in Africa is to be part of this trading bloc, either be part of it or reap the benefits of being part of the AfCFTA. That's number one. Number two, the African Union, which is the African body that brings together all the 54 states on the continent, has decided that foreign direct investment is extremely critical and important for the continent. And it's with this that they're ensuring that they're putting in place policies that ensure political and socio-economic integration for the continent. They're also aiming to ensure that they promote and defend African common positions on issues of interest to the continent and its people, to most importantly, encourage potential and promote international cooperation. Now, this is very important. Before, African states used to work in unison, but now the African Union has decided that, you know what, it's important for the African continent to ensure that we're actually working together as a team, and that makes a formidable source. So already 2 reasons why someone should invest on the continent if you're watching today. I'll just reiterate the first one. The first one, the creation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that's creating the biggest trading bloc in the world of 1 billion people. And secondly, the African Union getting all these African states together to ensure at the end of the day that we're working together and we're creating policies that are here to promote not just the African people, but those who decide to invest and call Africa home. Thirdly, For anybody who's interested in investment, you will want a workforce that can help you double your business and ensure a return on investment for you. Well, the African continent boasts of one of the youngest populations, if not the youngest population in the world. In the country where I am from, I'm currently in Uganda. The median age of the population is 15 years. 70% of the population in Uganda is below the age of 70% is below the age of 28. That makes us a very young population. And on top of that, 75% of the population is even younger, under the age of 25. So we're such a young population. So that means that we have a workforce. In the next 5-10 years, we'll have young, robust, intelligent people who can work for you in your business. That's the third reason why you should invest on the continent. And of course, going on to the fourth reason why you should invest in the continent. The market capitalization of the GDP is the lowest globally currently here in Africa, and investors are likely to benefit from capital market growth in the coming decades. So the GDP, the capitalization to the GDP, is at its lowest currently. So that is a big plus for those who want to invest on the continent. And of course, you might have known that in the last few months or so, the whole of 2019, Mark Zuckerberg and the head of Twitter were in Nigeria. They traveled to Nigeria, they went over to South Africa, they came over to East Africa, and they were looking for young talent. And the reason why they were here is because they believe that technological advancement on the continent and that adaptation to technology and digitalization is happening very quickly on the continent, and it's greatly appreciated. So that brings me to my fourth point. Africa's fast adaptation to technology and internet usage has seen numerous tech giants, like I talked about, be it Facebook, be it Twitter, take an interest in the continent, with many of them investing in Africa to benefit from the young, well-educated workforce. So if you're a person, an investor today, and you're wondering, why should I be on the continent? That's a good reason. Lots of people, lots of big tech companies are deciding to call Africa home. And you know what they say, invest quickly and you will reap more fruits. Yeah, so let's go back to the first 4 key points that I mentioned of why you should make Africa your investment choice. Number one, the AfCFTA, the biggest trading bloc in the world of 1 billion people. Number two, the African Union asking the 54 states on the continent to work together as a team and to concentrate and to prioritize foreign direct investment. Number three, the issue of the GDP, the market capitalization to GDP is at its lowest currently. That's a good thing. Number four, the adaptation to technology and internet usage on the continent in the last 5 years or so has tripled by over 100%, raising the eyes of big tech giants and inviting those tech giants to invest on the continent. And we, like I said, we've seen big names like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook calling Africa home.
Sorry to interrupt you, just to let you know you have an extra minute.
Yes, I'll be through in a matter of a minute. And okay, number five, we're quickly as Africa starting to take our place on the climate change platform. We want Africa to be the example of a continent that takes climate change seriously. It's not surprising to see us making climate change one of the policy statements in a lot of what it is that we do. So if you do support climate change, you can certainly have a base in Africa, because we find that quite important. One should also note that Africa is on the same growth trajectory as the Asian tigers. Remember the Asian tigers a few years ago? They were on a particular growth trajectory. So the next 5 or 10 years, economists state that the place to be is Africa. Young population, lots of raw materials, and great value. Not just in the workforce, but in climate, and many opportunities that are yet to be untapped. That pretty much brings I could have spoken for the whole day, but the moderators told me that I have just 1 minute.
Right,
just 1 minute. But my appeal is, if you're thinking of a place to invest in Africa. And you must invest today, because the person who invests tomorrow won't reap as much as a person who's invested earlier.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Kasimba. We will be bringing you in later for some Q&A because questions are actually coming in a lot. So we have a few on the Q&A function. We have quite a few through the Zoom chat. So I'm looking forward to asking you those. Before I jump into the Q&A though, I do want to bring in, mention the fact that we have two important attendees. We have Mr. Denlami, who is the Minister for Economic and Consular Affairs at the Nigerian Embassy. Just acknowledge the fact that he is here. And we also have Mr. Akiri Bido, who is the head of the Lagos office for Nigerian and Diaspora Commission. He will be representing the Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, I believe. Mr. Akiri Bido, sorry, would you like to perhaps just make a comment today on the session that we're having on Black and African power and economic power, in the modern world? The floor is yours for 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you for having me, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Winnie, for having me. I like your passion. I'm sure, can I be heard? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Right, thank you so much. And my name is Ayodele Akiri Bido. I'm standing in or sitting in for Abike Dabiri Erewa, that is currently the Chairman, CEO, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission here in Nigeria. The topic before me today is precise and simple, in that this is exactly what the commission I presently work for is set up to establish. We are set up to establish economic power for Nigerians in diaspora in the modern world. But first of all, every time I come across such topics, few things come to my mind, and that is, in the modern world, economic power is based on innovative, creative, and intellectual property. And my question is, where does Africa fall in? The last speaker has been so succinct and beautiful in our approach to it. Yes, I agree with her completely. Africa is the place to be. Africa is the modern day investment destination. But we have our challenges. We have our challenges, and these challenges is, I would like to address leadership, African leadership. My experience, I lived in England for about 10 years, and one of the few things I experienced is that we Africans, especially in diaspora, we are somehow mean to each other. Why that is, I will leave it for researchers to bring it about. But the place for Africa in the modern world is vital. It's important. It is, without it, we can't move forward. We are educated enough. That is why we have an African now at the helm of affairs in the World Trade Organization. That is why we have an African in the near helm of the US Treasury. So therefore, every form of structural inequality targeted at Africa should become a thing of the past if we have the right and proper leadership in place. Leadership that has genuine passion for the development of Africa, leadership that's got the genuine passion in points, in content, and in creativity, just like the last speaker. And
Mr. Akiribido, we can't hear you anymore. It appears there's a problem with your connection, unfortunately.
hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please resume. You were saying just like the last speaker.
Yeah. So Africa is not poor. Africa has never been poor. If Africa is poor, 2 Western countries will not come to Africa and get over $10 billion US year on year as commission for remittances. So it's for Africans, for us Africans, which includes myself, to begin to look inwards. We have what it takes. We've got the content, we've got the original thinkers, we've got the the academicians, we've got the intellectuality to move our continent forward. Therefore, if we begin to focus our attention on leadership that is as genuine, leadership that is as promoting African development and not self-development, I think the place for Black and African economic empowerment in the modern world will be at the front burner, and Africa will lead it. Thank you very much indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this pertinent remarks. It was a pleasure having you, even though this was very short notice. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I think what I will do now is open the floor to the Q&A and to questions. So please keep them coming, although I might not be able to ask all of them because I have quite a list as it is. And I think what I'm going to do is bring our first speaker back in for questions. So Dr. Wong, thank you for staying with us so far. I have quite a few questions. Let me ask one that was asked by Mr. Eze in our chat, who said, thank you for the wonderful presentation. You spoke about Africans consuming our own products. How do you propose that this can be stimulated when Africans do not have the purchasing powers caused mainly by corruption and inefficient governance? Did you catch that? Would you like me to repeat it, perhaps?
No, I got that.
Okay, good. Thank you. So the floor is yours. I'll give you maybe 2 minutes to answer.
It's a very good question. I agree with him on corruption and inefficient governance. However, I disagree with him on not having purchasing power.
Okay.
We all wear brands. Take, for instance, in Nigeria, the CEO of Rolls-Royce says that that is the next market they have to go into. Yeah. Nigerians pay cash wherever they go. Let me take Nigeria as a case study. It's my country. They pay cash wherever they want to buy anything outside Nigeria. Yeah. This is why they come to Europe, they want to buy a house, they pay full, and the white man will be looking at them as if, oh, what's happening here? So we have the money to buy whatever we want. The question is this: do we have the enabling environment for the manufacturers to give us the right products? That's the thing. So we need to have the right products to suit our taste. Of course, we all have our different tastes. We have our different choices of things we want to use. So the enabling environment has to be there for the manufacturers to have the right facilities to produce original products that we can have confidently. We can afford it. And again, we know that we know about open systems where people import and export goods. We also have closed systems. That's what China practices. They do not, okay, they export, however, they don't really import. They use what is produced in China and export what, of course, the excess they cannot use. They do that. And that is why they have been growing economically. So if Africans can, in effect, use their products, the government producing the right environment for the manufacturers to produce the right product with quality materials, you find out that Africans will patronize our own.
Absolutely.
That is
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I have a few more questions for you, Dr. Walgo, but I'll get back to those in a minute.
Okay.
Maureen, I would like to bring you next. We have a question for you that is, even though Black ownership in the industry is undermined compared to other leading countries, is there a chance for Black and Africans to reverse this system? And if there is, could you put forward how to do so? And if other speakers would like to come in on these questions as well, please do so.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. One of the things that has been established over here in the States, and which we believe in for us in terms of growth, often starts from a grassroots community. Yeah. You start there, and it often starts in people's homes. It starts with families who want something bigger and beyond themselves. And so we look at this model as a gateway for that sector of growth, or at least one of the, that's a good sector or segue for growth to occur. Because it, first of all, allows participation of a continued unity of the family. And it helps the family to have a unified agenda that develops leadership, starts to have a focus on educating themselves in economic growth and development, and also a stronger sense of pride and culture in themselves to take it out there on a global level. So this is one of the ways that we feel can happen with us as a people when we come together on that level. It was certainly as one sector. And then we have people who have businesses or small businesses, right, who are in their local community, who might want to expand, but don't have the logistics for doing so, or might need, have an opportunity to have lower risk of capital. They don't have the capital, but when you have unified and joint number of people coming together, it reduces the need for the individual's capital because you're pooling together, right? Then if you are leveraging brand, a brand that is already established, that has events, that's drawing people, that's drawing revenue. We much rather go to our vendors in our own community to have a piece of that pie than to go to an outright, not, well, you heard that one, but go to go to an outside source to put your money. We keep our money in the market, and that's where growth occurs. That is where the growth occurs, where you have money constantly circulating within your own community, which also allows for the expansion of an enterprise to be beyond your local community. Now you perhaps will have a sports group who are holding events that are in the community, and maybe growing and holding events that become in the region, and maybe holding events where you're flying into the US or in other countries and having that kind of exposure for you. So this is what we see when we talk about the Global Wings Project, that it gives that accessibility. And it's not a short, we're not talking easy. We're not talking easy, absolutely.
Nothing is easy.
No, but it is progress, and it is a sense of growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that answer.
Sure.
So we have another question for you, Maureen. I'll keep you while I have you. Do you think, in your opinion, that how can we, there's a question that says, how can we increase the connection between international sports and an African one? Obviously, you're coming from Afro-American perspective, but would you have a perspective or an opinion on how the African sports industry can become a world leading one, because it is currently trailing, even though it produces most of the most successful sports player worldwide. So would you have an opinion on that?
Yeah. Be part of the conglomerate.
Okay. Well, that's a short to the point answer, but it makes sense. It does. It does. And loop in with everything you said. Thank you very much. Dr. Wangu, I have another question for you from the audience, which asks, how do people who live in lower class area that struggle to get assistance from the government, well, actually this question might also be relevant to you, Maureen, but how do people who live in lower class areas that struggle to get assistance from governments and family members get their small businesses off the ground and participate in the manufacturing sector as you described it?
Thank you for the question. Actually, we need to really support our low-income people or people in the lower class. We need to really support them with their investments. We, as a people, have relatives who are in businesses. We don't give them capital without considering that they have to pay for the rent of the shops or wherever they are doing their business. We have to also put into consideration that they have to feed from there, and we have to put into consideration that they have to pay their house rent, take care of their domestic needs, children to school, and other things that are needed in the family. In other words, what I'm trying to say, one of the problems we have is when we want to set up somebody for a business, we don't put all this into consideration. And that is why as soon as the business starts, it goes down. It doesn't even go up. It goes down. Because from the money we give, or the capital we give, that is where all this are settled from. But regarding getting loans from the government, because that can also be a source of capital, it is not easy. Somebody who cannot provide anything has no collateral to get access to those loans. So the government has to make it a bit easy so that people in the lower class can also benefit from the national cake, so to say, national cake. Now, take for instance, there are some people in the higher cadre in Nigeria who are precisely the only people doing the business. They get the loans, they get all the franchise to do everything they want. I can't imagine in a country where I come from, where somebody single soul has the production of cement to build houses. Take, for instance, that kind of situation. Another person cannot import rice into Nigeria, but one person. That doesn't give in room for competition.
Absolutely.
Open up these channels. Let people also, by so doing, you will empower people to also make their own money.
Okay.
It's not just one person. So, to be honest, we have a problem that needs to be tackled.
Absolutely.
And it's only when we put it into perspective that it can be solved.
Yeah. So from what you're saying, what I gather is that, like what Maureen was saying, we need to invest more in our community locally, look at the people who are producing the goods that we need, who aren't those big brands, big outsider brands, let's say, but we also need to encourage our governments to support our populations better so that they can be empowered not only through making the market a fair competition, but also so they have access to microloans or just more means to support their businesses and get it from a very small business to perhaps a bigger business, and then that through the local market laws of the market and economic, they can grow or die, but through a fair process.
Yeah, better management, they can thrive.
Absolutely.
But you've said it all.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you for that. I think the next question I'm going to ask is Ms. Kazumba Jane. I'm sorry again to the attendees. I won't be able to go through all of the questions because I'm mindful of the time, but Ms. Kazumba, so we had, I believe, Mr. Eze again, who said, thank you for your nice presentation. Theoretically, Africa is the new frontier, but practically, are we really the new frontier for business investment? My concern is based on the lack of pragmatic enabling business environment, riddled with corruption and poverty. So how do you suggest that we address this?
Thank you very much, Crystal. And thank you very much, Mr. Uzi, who said I had a nice presentation. I think, and I think earlier on in your conversation, you talked about the issue of mindset change. I think it's very important for us to change our mindsets as Africans and to understand the opportunities that are before us. I think Dr. Ugo just mentioned it. He said, people come onto the continent and leave with $10 million. And you'll find an African person in this lifetime will never have the ability to maybe earn or to have an investment worth $10 million. Yet people fly into the African continent and get all these opportunities that we should be able to enjoy as African people. So I think it's important first and foremost to unlock our minds and know that the opportunities and everything that we need is there on the African continent. And number two, I talked about the creation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. I'm going to talk about two policies. The African Continental Free Trade Area and Agenda 2063, both African Union policies that have been created and being implemented starting in this year, 2021. This, first of all, creates the biggest trading bloc on the continent, that's the AfCFTA. And the 2063 agenda ensures that in the next 60 years, we shall have a model continent. Now, if African people can get behind, change our mindsets, and get behind these erstwhile policies, it will be worthwhile. We will see a changed continent. Number three, issues to do with leadership. I think it's important for African people to want the very best for themselves, to want the best for their lives, to want the best for their children, to want the best for their societies. So I think it's important for us to reach out to our leaders, to African leaders, and tell them that we're no longer interested in living in a second-class continent. We want a first-graded continent. We have to put our leaders to account and tell them that, you know what, we need the best. And that means that they have to tackle matters to do with corruption, matters to do with inequality, matters to ensure that as Africans, we're able to get all the necessary opportunities that we need. So those are the 3 points that I think are quite important, that I think we should use in order to see the opportunities on the continent. And yes, I still believe that it's a new frontier when it comes to investment, certainly.
Thank you for that answer. You managed to address everything. I have another question for you. I have actually quite a few, so I'm trying to choose which one would be most relevant. So there's another question that says, do you think Africa really has a lot to offer investment-wise with all of the fluctuating in the economy? And if so, in what sector or sectors do you really think it has the most to offer? I think that's perhaps asking from your insight, but I might also ask the other speakers perhaps if they would like to interject briefly.
Yeah, I think Africa has a lot to offer, and I think I'm part of a platform or a channel called Agenda 2063. Our aim is to change the narrative of what African people and the world think of Africa. We're really not depicted the way that we are. The continent is not depicted the way it is supposed to be depicted. I've worked in media for a long time. I'm a media practitioner. I'm a PR person, and I know how to brand things, and I know how to get things out there. And let me tell you, the narrative on Africa is wrong. It is a lie. And so many people have believed it. Even Africans ourselves have believed it. And let me tell you, I live on the African continent. It is an absolute lie. And I've traveled everywhere. I've traveled to China, I've traveled to the US, I've traveled everywhere, to Europe, everywhere. And let me tell you, the opportunities on the African continent are immense. It's just that the narrative all these years has been wrong, and it has been done deliberately to make sure that we don't reap our own benefits. So the areas that you should be concentrating on if you want to invest are in technology. Yeah, the population is young, they love technology, so invest in technology. Tourism is great. Service industry are great. There's so many opportunities. We can spend the whole day talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. But the comment you just made is also very interesting, because you talk about the narrative, and it's one of the topics that we covered in our first session about reclaiming the narrative and how culture has always been rich, and it's the purpose of this whole conference, that reclaiming the narrative and painting a different picture of Black and African communities and populations who, unfortunately, the narrative is not only being sold to the rest of the world, but also to ourselves. And we end up believing that we have limited power. And when you internalize this belief, then it becomes hard or near impossible to achieve what you really could achieve as a person, but also as a community. So thank you for that. My next question would be—
Crystal, very quickly. I think it's important to note that we create the continent that we want.
Absolutely.
If you see a continent the way it looks, it's a direct depiction of who you are. So if you want a great continent, make it a great continent. The United States is great because the US decided to make it great. So we can make it a great continent.
Okay. I believe we have the power to do so, and this is potentially contributing to that. Thank you. Mr. Akiribido, are you still— oh, Maureen, okay, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'd like to take a comment from our speaker. Maureen, yes, please come in.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank my two panelists. I think they're hitting the nail on the head in what needs to be done. And I just want to add a couple of things here.
Yeah.
The African narrative that is a lie is the global Black narrative.
Absolutely.
That is a lie.
Yes.
That has intentionally been perpetrated to keep us subservient to a dominant oppressive culture. In the Education of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, he says that the education of the oppressed is the gateway to freedom and liberation. And so when we talk about leadership over here, I'm actually referring to leadership development within the individual, recreating the leadership of the individual, educating the individual in their acknowledging and recognizing their own power within. We do not have to depend on leadership when we have our own leadership developed within. We have eyes to see beyond seeing when we begin to develop the leadership within. We see what's possible where we did not see before. We can choose to create, and thank you, Ms. Kasumba, for mentioning that, because that is one of my mantras. What has been created for us, we also have the power to recreate by us. Mm-hmm. And that is very much part of our agenda as we move forward and expand. I am such a firm believer of that it starts at a minute level with the individual person. It is collectively where change begins, and they come together, you see, where the one is the power for many.
Thank you, Maureen. I mean, you've managed to tie in all of your presentations and point of view together, so I don't have that much work to do, which works out. Mr. Akiribito, thank you for waiting. I'm sorry for making you wait, but we have a comment that was put to you, and I will put it to you. So somebody in the attendance also thanked you for joining us. I would like to reiterate that. Thank you so much for joining us despite the last minute. So you said that Africa is the place, and specifically Nigeria, in your case, the place to be. How do you back that up with the level of insecurity in terms of lives, properties, and investment? We have the population, but we lack the enabling and conducive business environment. Would you agree with that statement? And if not, or if so, could you care to elaborate? I'll give you maybe 2 to 3 minutes because we're running out of time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Every state has their challenges everywhere in the world. Yeah. Our security challenges was non-existent 10, 15 years ago. So the present and current security challenge that Nigeria is facing currently, as far as we are concerned, has got to do with leadership. That is why I hammered on leadership. I overemphasized on leadership. Africa has got everything to offer if we get the leadership recruiting system perfect, or if we get it correctly. Presently, our leadership recruiting system in Nigeria is flawed. It's flawed. It is predetermined. It is tilted towards favoring a particular individual at every particular point in time. And the world has changed. The world is moving on. If a continent thinks they are going to rely on their abundant natural resources, when economic empowerment now follows intellectual property, innovative property, and creative property, we all know the end of the story. Yes, Nigeria still has everything to offer, because I said it in my first address. If Nigeria had nothing to offer, Western Union, MoneyGram, will not make over $10 billion annually on just remittances alone.
Absolutely.
Mobile, Texaco, Total, FinaHealth are still operating in Nigeria despite the insecurity. They are in Nigeria for a reason. The security challenge is secondary to them. So there must be something that is primary to them, that embraces them here, that attracts them to our continent. However, imagine Africa's population, the demographics, over 65% of our population are the youth. So now let's assume that this 65% are in the middle class. Any country that has 65% of the middle class dictates the trade narrative.
Absolutely.
can determine which commodity comes into your country. You can determine which market comes. You can determine everything that's got to do with commerce and trade. And hopefully, like I said, we have an Africa now at the helm of the World Trade Organization. Hopefully, there will be enough level playing field for her to do what is just, for her to do what is right. But looking inward, we have to get our own reasoning right. Absolutely. We have to get our thinking right by genuinely and purposefully choosing the leaders that is real for us, the leaders that is after development, not self-interest development.
Thank you. Thank you for those remarks. I believe, Dr. Mwogu, you would like to come in also and build upon this remark, perhaps.
Not necessarily on the remark. I saw a question from Kayun that says I should give an example of how specific policy has impacted the manufacturing sector. So yes. I would really like to talk about that.
Go ahead. I can give you 2 minutes. I'm being generous.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Actually, Kayun, honestly, I do not have a specific example. However, I will try to tell you a short story about what I feel regarding that. Take, for instance, there is a company, a car manufacturing company in Nigeria called Nzuko. What I had expected the incumbent government of Nigeria to do is to accept this car manufacturing company and make all official cars to be bought from this company. This is a way of encouraging our own. This is a way of supporting them. However, no way it is not done. Rather, our leaders prefer to import Toyota Land Cruiser into the country, suffocating this indigenous company to thrive. If they are not encouraged, how can we move on? Take, for instance, again, I happened to be in a forum in Denmark when I was doing my PhD. A permanent secretary from Nigeria visited, and the ambassador brought him to Denmark. He visited Sweden, he brought him to Denmark because the Swedish consulate serves the Nordic countries. So I happened to be invited to come and be there. You won't believe it that so many professionals talked about bringing companies into Nigeria, and they nearly got fired because the company's arguments are they bring the roads, they bring logistics, they bring energy, they bring whatever the money they are going to invest, they will bring it. There's nothing the country is providing. So how do you want us to spend this kind of money investing in this nation while we don't get anything, any support? So you find out that it has to do with all these